In this short video, we're going to be looking at how to migrate a physical renderer from Siebel 81110 to Siebel 81111. And in doing so, we'll be looking at three primary points. Firstly, how to alter the code from 81110 to work with 81111. Secondly, how the manifest extensions.map file is migrated to the database in 81111. And finally, how the custom manifest.xml content is migrated to the database in 81111. Let's start now by looking at the custom renderer that we're going to move. So here we are in 81110. The custom renderer that I have in the background is primarily designed to alter the look and feel of an out-of-the-box list applet. And in doing this, it uses the active flag to determine whether or not this field should have a red, this record indeed, should have a red background or a green background, thus immediately painting information on the screens for our eyes and brain to digest. This works because in the background, the custom manifest, first of all the manifest extensions.map, relates two separate applets to the list active records PR. Then in the custom manifest file, the list active records PR lists the files that are required to make that happen. So first we have the list of dependencies such as JQGrid, the physical renderer, and the grid renderer, which is an extension of the physical renderer. And finally, our custom list renderer, called List Active Records PR. At the end of all that, we have the code itself, which I'm not going to go into in much detail. Our primary goal is to see what needs to change here. So this is how it's looking in 81111, and we're now going to look at, this is 81110, and we're now going to look at the current state of affairs in 81111. So here's 81111, and as you can see at the moment, these two applets are not showing the coloration that is the result of the custom physical renderer in 81110. So we need to move our code across. The first job for us to do then is to bring the code itself across. Going back to the 81110 environment, let's take this code and in 81111 now, let's go into the client public ENU 23026 scripts Siebel custom directory, and we'll create a new file to store this information. It's the list active records pr.js file, and I'm going to paste my code directly into there. Now, the first thing that we're going to do with this code is we're going to need to change it, because in 81111 there's no longer any such thing as register constructor against key. This is essentially replaced with a new command called define, and the parameters for define are as follows. First of all, we have a name for the renderer, which will be Siebel custom list active records PR. The second argument is an array containing the list of dependencies that this renderer depends on. And so in this case, it depends upon the list renderer or JQ grid renderer. So I'm going to list this here. Now some slightly interesting syntax first, but essentially need to list Siebel JQ grid renderer. The final parameter is a function, and this function needs to return the physical renderer. So I'm going to snip the end of the brackets off this define statement. I'm going to indent our list active renderer, list active records PR, and close the define function there. So the aim of this function is to return a reference to this renderer in the same way that this was a reference to the renderer before. I'm going to copy that, and after our renderer is defined, I will return the reference to the renderer. And this line of code disappears. That concludes our changes to the code. So note that all we've really done is taken the existing code here and enclosed it as a parameter or an argument which defines this function to the define method. So I'm going to save that file now, and we'll begin to look at how the custom manifest and the manifest extensions map files are migrated. To do that, we're going to go back into Siebel, and I'm going to go to the sitemap. And in the sitemap, I'm going to query for manifest. These three views contain not only the definition that would have been present previously in the manifest extensions, the core manifest and the custom manifest, but we now also have an additional level of flexibility for deciding which renderers are used, which is called the manifest expressions. We're not going to spend a great deal of time with the manifest expressions. We're actually just going to rely on the fact that one already exists, which is useful to us, to restrict the physical renderer that we're going to define to run on the desktop. This list of expressions can be extended, and indeed these expressions can be brought together in an arbitrarily complex way to define a complex set of expressions to determine which renderers and which models should be used within the system. We're actually going to go to manifest files first, where we're going to add a reference to our new physical renderer. This is in Siebel custom list active records pr.js. What the parallel here from 8.11.10, if we just go back to 8.11.10 for a moment, and we look at the custom manifest, what we just entered into 8.11.11 is this line, and the remainder comes to us as a result of specifying that the dependency is on JQ Grid Renderer. So that dependency in turn will define a dependency on the physical renderer and will define a dependency on the JQ grid files if we were to go and look in the JQ Grid Renderer.js file. Now, that concludes the migration of the content of the custom manifest. We now also need to perform this mapping that tells the system that for these applets, this custom renderer should be used. So I'm going to take the name of one of these, and coming back now to the manifest administration, I'm going to create a record that says that the applet personalization rule set list applet should use a custom, or should use the physical renderer, only though when we're in desktop mode, and I need to just give this a level, and under that circumstance I would like you to load in list active records PR. And I'm going to quickly do the same for the other list applet. At this stage, we should now be able to reload the application. One thing I have just realized is that there's also some CSS that goes along with this, with my renderer. So I'm going to just copy this CSS, and we're also going to move that to 8.11.11 at the same time. So I'm going to go to public files custom, and I'm going to edit my demo CSS. That's a custom file in my system, by the way. That won't be present in yours. You'll need to get that CSS into the relevant place. Now I'll need to reload my CSS as well now that I've made a change. And if I navigate over to personalization, we should be able to see whether or not the custom physical renderer has been migrated correctly. So when I go to the rule sets, the effect is now present in 8.11.11. This concludes the demonstration, and I hope it's been helpful to you.